Hi, everybody. Today is Thursday, February 11th, and it is Janice's birthday. So as you get on, everybody say happy birthday to Janice. I'll remind you later as you all get on. Okay, this morning we are going to be talking about, well, let me introduce Janice before we get to that as people come on. So Dr. Janice Dias. I practiced it so many times. Dr. Janice Dias, Associate Professor of Sociology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and founder and president of Grassroots Community Foundation, and soon to be, when does your book come out?
March 2nd.
March 2nd. Parent Like It Matters, How to Raise Joyful, Change-Making Girls. So, I mean, do you know anybody who doesn't want to do that?
I think a lot of people have the intention. I'm hoping that my book helps their intention become actualized. That is the difference between aspiration and planning and strategy. It's like we all want things. Now, the question is, do we have the resources and do we have the daily intention to make it happen?
And the advice and tools that you're going to share with us.
I am hoping to share some tools with you that I hope everyone can take to help improve their own lives and the lives of children.
Okay, before we start, I want to just, in honor of Black History Month, I want to repeat something that you said. We cannot create solutions without the input of those we are serving. We must always ask and co-create with those whose lives we seek to positively impact. If we fail to do so, we will replicate the inequities we seek to end.
Where did you find that quotation?
I have no idea, but it's so beautiful. I just had to share it in honor of Black History Month.
Well, okay. Thank you so much for sharing that, because actually that's so important to all aspects of my life, co-creation. And I mean that even also in parenting. So I thank you for finding that quotation and really highlighting it. I appreciate it so very much.
Oh, and Stephanie says it's beautiful and touching, which is, of course, Stephanie, why I shared it, because Janice has many more beautiful things to share, but that one I just felt was so appropriate for today. And you guys are on here, just wish a happy birthday to Janice. Today's her birthday, and she's willing to be here with us.
And so, I love my birthday.
So put in the comments, happy birthday. Okay, so the title of your book, I'll say it one more time, Parent Like It Matters, How to Raise Joyful, Change-Making Girls. Tell us why you wrote it. Oh, beautiful cover.
I love this cover so much.
Yeah.
I wrote it for several reasons. I wrote it because I have a very brilliant and precocious daughter who insisted that I had to write it. Her name is Marley Dias, and she is the creator of the 1000 Black Girl Books campaign, and she's written her own book. And they always say she is 16 years old.
And she started this when?
She started it when she was 10, and she wrote her book when she was 12. It's published by Scholastic. And she also is the host and executive producer of the Netflix series Bookmarks, celebrating Black voices, that is currently on Netflix that you can watch. And so she is leading the way. And for the past 5 years, she has been really made very, very known to the world. In that process, folks have described her skills as and her commitment to justice as really biological, natural. And she's been largely offended by this description, in large part because she is a part of a cohort of girls who I've worked with over the past decade, who have been trained through the Grassroots Community Foundation, specifically our super camp, who have been taught that we are a part of an extended community and our health and well-being are tied. And so she wanted to push me, because only your child that lives with you, to share the story of the work that I've been doing for the past decade with the girls, as well as the work that I've been doing with her, so that parents and caregivers and educators can see that she's not some miracle. Right, is that we, in fact, if we get our efforts together, if we're intentional about this work, we can actually create a cadre of children who are invested in their own well-being and working to create a new and more equitable society. So she pushed me and she marshaled a bunch of people, including Jacqueline Woodson, to encourage me to do this. And so the book is the culmination of they're pushing me to share what I know in science, to share what I know in my life, and to share the experiences of the Grassroots Community Foundation and our girls and families, to show you that regardless of where you were born, regardless of where you are, you too can positively impact the world. So that's how the book came to be.
First of all, she sounds remarkable. So I guess, I good job to you, even though we can't take credit for the bad and the good. So
we have to take credit for both.
Yeah. Either both or neither, right? But her comment about taking offense at being called like someone extraordinary is so interesting, because it kind of relinquishes our responsibility in the story if we see somebody who does something exceptional as being given gifts that no one else has. So you're bringing us down to, we all have the potential here, and we can parent kids, girls in particular is your focus, but we can parent our kids to pull it out from them, to let it flourish.
Yes, and I strongly believe that. I'm a sociologist, and we talk a lot about structure, shaping opportunities, and the kind of biodeterministic things that so many of us do. We're like, they're a natural athlete. We don't think about their skills or their talents or the resources around them. Oh, only they could do it. So we have this whole notion of the charismatic leader, the singular person, the person who is gifted from some up high. And that divorces us from having power and agency to change our own lives. It just relinquishes any work we have to do. We're like, oh, yeah, it's just the way I was born. So much of our lives is determined by actually the actions and the conditions under which we grow up, and how much of what our resources are. And so Marley has been taught this, and the girls in our organization have been taught this. And so what I'm hoping to do with this book is to share with caregivers. Some of us were born incredibly poor, like me. Some of us were born in families that were abusive. Some of us were abandoned. Some of us had gleeful childhood. But regardless of the context, we can all decide and be intentional in how we decide to raise our children. And the locus of control is ours. And that should make us optimistic. And that should make us feel like, oh, in a world where I sometimes feel like I can't do nothing, this is something I could do. This is something I can do. And especially if you have had your child with you your whole life, then you have a tremendous amount of influence.
Okay, so let's talk about what you talk about, and your title of your book reflects it, this notion of joy, and how is joy in comparison to happiness?
Yeah, so I make a big point. I make a big stink about this because we have the word joy so much and so active in our vocabulary now. So I just think I make the distinction between joy and happiness in this way. So a lot of us have to do a bunch of performance in the world. How are you doing? I'm fine, right? And we perform our feelings so very much. And people say, oh, they look happy. They seem happy. And that happiness is often fleeting and performative. And I argue that joy is something else. Joy is an internal peace. And that internal peace comes about through a process of knowing oneself and being connected to the world. And so joyful people can be happy in the performative sense, sad, irritated, and frustrated, but joyful people keep an internal optimism that there are greater things ahead. And they do so because they're engaged in the act of contributing to how greater things occur. So I tie joyfulness to the notion of acting and change making, because it is an internal flame that burns regardless of what is happening. And that's particularly important now because so many things are sucky right now. And so people might feel like, my joy is stolen. And what I argue is that joy cannot be stolen. Joy needs to be cultivated, and it needs to be gardened. But happiness is fleeting and it's temporary. And we need to focus on the more deeper internal peace that we want to have.
You made a connection between joy and change making. as
Yes.
we were just talking. So can you tell us what do you mean by change making and what's the connection?
So I want to be really clear here about the distinction between like change make as like a stop point, like as a finite thing, like, oh, I've now changed it. It's done. It's like the people who are post-racial, right? Is that change making is a process of engaging in the society in order to move it to a more equitable condition, right? And so when you are engaged in change making, you are engaged in trying to address the social inequities that you see in your life. They may be as simple as people not having adequate food in your neighborhood. They may be as big as trying to address climate change. But change making is a process of engaging inside and outside of your home. And that process involves being in connection with others and working collaboratively with others in order to improve the society, not just for yourself, not just for your family, but for all others. And when you're engaged in that, when you're kind of plucking away at creating a more equitable society, you'll find that it will invigorate peace inside of you because you feel like you're acting, you're doing, you're a part of, and you're connected. And that I call joy.
Kristen Churchill says, I love this idea of joy. How can you not?
Thank you, Kristen.
So how do we, this idea of modeling as parents doesn't always play out in the time frame that we want. So if I'm change making, yeah, I might want to see that my kids are change making also. And I know this from firsthand experience that my kids did not want to engage in the things I was engaged in. But as they moved into adulthood, they found their own spaces. So it was really frustrating in their adolescence. So how do you deal with that?
I often laugh at caregivers like you because I know so many of them. They're like, well, I'm out here and my kid doesn't want to come to this volunteer. My kid doesn't want to do anything, right? And I will say to you what I say to many caregivers is that we already know the answer. The answer is parenting requires a tremendous amount of patience. Like a tremendous amount of patience. Because first of all, we know that even the stuff we're teaching them now, we're all saying the same thing. Like, is this even worth it? Is it even working? Right? Is anything I am doing working? Right? And yet we keep doing it. Right? We keep trying every day. So what I say to caregivers who are impatient, who want to see immediate, is try to calm yourself. Know that the idea of modeling it, not for performance, not for external reasons, is how values and mores become part of children's lives. And that has to be a kind of piece that you really get into. Furthermore, if you ask your caregivers, they will tell you how horrible you too were. And so that will help you in so many ways be more patient with the young people in your charge, is that parenting is an investment and the ROI for some come early, but the ROI for others come later. And what we have to do is to recognize we're not doing it for this one moment, right? The specific thing I just talked about, like, oh, I've solved it. I have the best kid and it's over. What we want to do is add humanity to it and think about change making, think about parenting as something across the life course, and be kinder to ourselves and be more patient with the young people who are in our charge. And this is particularly important for girls who are often asked so much and asked to be so mature so early, particularly Black girls. But we can do better. We can temper ourselves. That's why we need friends who'll be like, calm down. You know, the child will be fine. Because oftentimes those of us who are high charged are like, it's not working. My kid is just a sloth.
Okay, I'm going to put up a question. If my teen daughter, this is from Kay Nakarada Collins, if my teen daughter were watching this, what would you say to her to help spark a flame of seeking joy, not fleeting happiness? That's such a beautiful question.
Oh, thank you so much for that question. So if your teen daughter were watching this, I would ask her to ask you whether or not you are joyful, or whether you are performing happiness. Because what I want to make sure that happens with this book and with my work is that caregivers are not doing a thing that is commonly done by all of us, is that we expect our children to be better than us. We expect our children to be joyful and we be performative. We expect our children to have spark, even though we might be flat. So I would ask your teen daughter to say, what is it that burns inside of you? Where do you feel your passions? What do you feel like you can do to contribute to the world? And I would ask her to ask you the same thing. And I think together in that exchange is where you might find that she may have more spark than you imagine, or she might be looking to you for guidance and hoping to get it in that way.
I just got a little teary from that. That is so beautiful. Like it's not a one-way thing, like that you're demanding of your kids, but to bring them into that conversation, that will be the most powerful conversation you ever have with your kid. That's beautiful.
I mean, and it's hard. It's hard because many of us have just been, we have watched models of parenting that is external, like it's just the child, not the co-creation that I think is so necessary also in parenting. We have no idea what it's like to live in the skin of these teens in this historic moment in this way. And so we have to co-create with them what we want to see and help them get voice across their life course so that they can be in dialogue with us. So in the book, I talk a lot about this importance of listening to them and having them really serve as like cameras into their world. And that only comes through this dialogue. And that dialogue creates safety for them. And it also gives them an opportunity to learn and hear you differently.
So I want to talk about listening a little bit because we hear that as a charge often. And I think most of us would describe ourselves as good listeners. At least we're striving to be that. But our kids may not feel that we are being good listeners. So what are there like 4 things, I don't know, 2 things that you do to indicate to someone else, your child in particular, that you are in fact listening?
Oh, there are a couple of things. I mean, I will say that even though I think of myself as a good listener, I have in fact improved in listening over the past year. We have sought therapeutic support, and again, I have this child who holds no bars in terms of telling me exactly what she thinks of my strengths and weaknesses. And so she did give me an 80%. I want to tell you that, which I feel like is really great. I've always loved to be. And she has rated many other people below that. But there are a couple of things about listening that I think we have to acknowledge. Our young people, we love them, right? But we are like, you don't know nothing. You haven't lived, right? So as a parent, we know that that's inside of our head and we have to acknowledge it. We have to say it out to them. You should know that I have a whole wealth of experience having lived 4 or more decades or 3 or more decades over you. So these things I'm working on. When we're listening, there are a couple of techniques that we can do. One is that we actually commit to the moment. Right? So you're not on your phone, the TV is not on, the radio is not on, you're at their eye length. Now, that may change for teenagers, especially my teenager is now my height, right? But you try to sit down and you be present in that moment. I also urge caregivers to repeat a phrase, something like, I hear you say, right? I hear you say this, to have an account into them that you're actually hearing the words they're saying. I'm not asking you to paraphrase what they say. I'm asking you to repeat back to them what you hear them say, not your feelings about what you hear them say, so that you can actually be really very clear in the way that you're responding to them. Much like when I was in marriage counseling, our marriage counselor said, I don't think you guys hear each other. And I was like, I hear him. I know what he's saying, right? Because I had a whole notion of his intention, not the actual words that he said. And teenagers need to know that you are hearing the actual words they say. And then you talk about how those words fall on you and how your words fall on them. It is an exercise that seems at first, it's just going to seem like weird and wonky, which is like, I hear you say this. Is this what you're saying? And then they can correct you. And you then have to be in a position to be honest about how things fall on you. Like, I really don't like that. And you can tell them I really don't like that, but that doesn't mean you're getting up from the conversation. You're not storming off. And you should ask them what they want from you, having shared whatever it is they share with you. They may want you just to listen. They may want you to act. They may want you in the future to do something differently. So you, again, this is where co-creation matters. You must respect the fact that they have a point of view, and that point of view they're sharing with you. And that means that they want you to honor their humanity just like you want them to honor yours.
Oh my God, that requires so much parsing out. There's so many unbelievable things in there. The one that I'm thinking is that when you are tasking yourself with repeating what they say, you can't be doing anything other than listening.
No.
Because there's no way you can do that.
There's no, and that, and for working parents in particular, this is important because working parents usually have like 10 minutes, right? And so many of us, everything we're doing is trying to take care of our children. We're working too hard. We're doing this. We're trying to keep our job because we need to keep our home, our health insurance. And I'm like, if you just take 10 minutes every day to just be there in that moment with them, they will feel the emotional security that they need. We worry about their physical security, their financial security, but this emotional security needs to be on top of our list as well. And 10 minutes of just your full attention to them, I argue, will change your relationship with them and will enhance your relationship with yourself, because you can do hard things. You can listen to a child for 10 minutes without interjecting your craziness.
Okay, so you also talk about how, I think this is in your book, that the idea of listening doesn't necessarily require you to say yes. And I think that's one of the things we fear as parents, that when we say to our kid, like, I want to hear your position on this, that what we're telling our kid is, I'm prepared to say yes to you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let me divorce you from that idea. Become very comfortable and happy with a no. I'm great at no. Like, I will listen to everything that she has to say. And then she has to make a case pro or con of why this is, considering our family values and all the rest. And it's still like, no, child. It ain't gonna happen. Right. But a no is not enough. A no, you can't do it, is just inadequate. I know that we're all out here saying no is a complete sentence. I argue that no is not a complete sentence, that in fact it is no because. It is no because this puts you in danger. It is no because the time schedule of our family. It is no because we cannot afford it. It is no because this is not in alignment with what I want you to do. And so that kind of response changes, and it is not the do as I say model. It is a rationale. It is a feeling. It is a commitment. So when you listen to them and then you decide no, which you should gleefully say, you need to give them a reason for the no, because that will help in your future conversation. They will have a sense of, what do my caregivers value? What are they likely to say no to? What are they likely to say yes to? And it will allow them to feel safe enough that they can bring anything to you. And that's what you really want. We all know that our children they're not telling us everything. They are not. Okay. If you think back about how many things your caregivers don't know about what you did, right? You're just happy to be alive, right? And so they're not going to tell you everything, but what you want them to do is to tell you the big things that can harm them. You want them to feel safe enough to share with you that which matters. And so you have to set the foundation, and you should feel very happy. Just go out there and practice that no. No, you can't do that because. No, you can't stay up late because it harms you. No, you can't drink all that sugar because it is not good for your health. No, you can't hang out with that person because they don't wear a mask. No, just get all involved in the no. Be happy for the no, but also give them a reason for the no.
It's so it's such a different way to look at it. And I want to say that sometimes when I hear things that are so different than the way I look at it, I kind of have this feeling like I could never do it. But the whole reason we're all here having this discussion is because we want to change. So you kind of have to do that uncomfortable thing. So I'm going to share Stephanie. This is my business partner. She says emotional security in 10 minutes. Love it.
Yes. Well, our time, I mean, even though we're home with them, all of us are working way too much, doing the absolute most. And so, 10 minutes of love and listening, I think will really advance us. And then by the time you notice it, I always say to caregivers, let's say you're exhausted. Like you're just like, today though, I can't talk to you today. Then I encourage you, even with your teens, and I know that it's going to sound crazy, but I promise you, if you try it and you let Sue know that I will respond to you, I will do something gracious. Even with your most ornery teen, if you are tired and you don't have 10 minutes to listen, try to just read with them for 10 minutes and talk about what you've read. They don't mind reading to you, or you can read to them, but just cuddle with them and read for 10 minutes. You will find that you start talking, and that talking is going to give you a connection to them that you otherwise, because teenagers are so special. They're so special. That connection is what builds it and allows for you, especially in these final years of your time with them, to still feel like you have some insight into who they are.
Okay, so this story, I'm going to just share. What if your spouse is passive and afraid to ruffle feathers, and when it comes to discipline says your mother said you need to do your homework, or any other situation, I'm always up. Oh, Stephanie, welcome to my life.
Oh, well, you may also be in mine. I'm sure my husband is on here somewhere. So your
husband just said, please say happy birthday to my wife, Janice. That is so sweet.
Well, my husband is, he and I fundamentally disagree on many parenting things. And you can see he's probably somewhere cringing in this house right now. But my husband does not like to ruffle feathers. My husband only has 2 mode. It's either a yes or he's mad. Like this thing that I'm talking to you about is not just a negotiation with my teen, it's a negotiation with my husband. So I have to do all of this prep work, like, hey, Scotty, this is what I'm going to talk to her. She's going to say certain things. I just want to be clear. The answer, if she asks me this thing, we're saying no. We are saying no. You know why we're saying no? And I will tell him why we're saying no. And he will push back and say, I think we should say yes. And 99% of the time, the reason why he wants to say yes is because he just wants to be adored. Like it has no value. It has no foundation. It isn't grounded in nothing except she really adores me. And now we're going to say no, and she's not going to adore me as much. And so then I have to spend this time with this crazy old man being like, what's our goal? Why do we have a child? Who do we want our child to be? What do you want here? And then he'll be like, oh my God. Like, so he is in the business of adoration, and I am in the business of raising a child who is joyful and change making. And sometimes we are on the same page and sometimes we are not. But you will have to do the prep work if your mate is a person who is really trying to make your parenting hard. And that can be the mom, that can be the dad, the grandma, whoever is in the house who's doing the parenting work. Y'all gonna have to get all the way together and get some agreements before you engage the child, because the child needs a clear, singular voice. And whoever articulates that voice is fine. But too often, or more often than not, it is the mom.
Yeah, in my house, we call my husband Disney Dad. And he only wants to be the beloved dad. Like there's not an ounce of him. But I mean, your point of no, yes or mad is you're getting a lot of love for these comments. I think it's really resonating with people. And you have somebody else on here who said, well, other people are saying happy birthday, but one of them has the same last name as you, Janice Johnson.
Ah, yes.
Says happy birthday. Okay, we are going to wrap this up so that you can go and have some fun on your birthday and get some love from your family and friends. And thank you so much for being here with us. Oh, and by the way, Janice and I went to the same college. We both went to Brandeis University. So thank you for being here with us. Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I thank you all for tuning in, and I do hope you will get a chance to order the book. The book has some great.
Hold it up one more time.
Oh, I'll be happy to hold up the book. each chapter has a set of assignments that you can do for yourself, that you can do with your children, and you can do in the broader community. So it is an actual resource. You don't like an assignment, you can go to another one. So it is rich with real tangible things versus just philosophy.
Thank you so much. Go buy her book.